Welcome to the final class in the study of the Yoga Sutras. We are studying the fourth chapter called the Kaivalya Pādaḥ. And we have 4 more sutras which we plan to cover today. So these sutras detail the final stages of the yogi's journey towards Kaivalyam or liberation. So lifting of the wheel. So in the last few sutras, we saw about the dharma-megha-samādhi, the final state before one enters the asampragnata samadhi. This is where all the seeds of the imprints, the samskaras, they're all burnt, which means they will not fructify into future karma. So we saw that in 4.29. Prasankyanepi akusidasya sarvata vivekakyate dharma-megha-samādhi. The state of one who remains totally disinterested even in the highest rewards of Sankhya. So this talks about paravairagyam, great letting go. And then from this, tata klesha karma nivrittihi, from this samadhi, the kleshas, and that is the afflictions and karma, actions from deep impressions, they cease. So the cycle of births and deaths, karma, janma, that will cease. Okay, so the lifting of the wheel. So the wheel refers to the wheel of ignorance. When that is lifted, the lamp, the light, that is the Purusha, is known in the mind without all the coloring and other things. Tada sarpa varana malapetasya jnanasya nantyaj jneyamalpam. Then all the coverings and impurities of the mind are removed. And there is very little left to be known of the infinite knowledge which one has gained. Tada means then, sarva avarana means sarva avarana, all coverings. Sarva is all, avarana is covering, so all coverings, mala, dirt and impurity, apetasya, sarva mala, apetasya means of the removal of the all the coverings and the dirt and impurity of the mind. Jnanasya anantyat. Jnanasya anantyat means of the knowledge being. Anantyat means being infinite. Anantam means infinity, so or just limitless. Jnanasya anantyas. What jnanam? This is the knowledge one has gained of the knowledge being infinity. Everything that needs to be known is known. So jneyam means that which has to be known. Alpam. Alpam means small. There's nothing or almost nothing. Alpam is minuscule. So then of all the coverings and the impurities of the mind are removed, and there's very little left to be known because one has already gotten the infinite knowledge. Okay, so what it means is that sattva prevailing in the mind after dharma-megha-samādhi. So it's like a rain. Dharma-megha is a cloud full of potent with water. So when it rains, it washes away all the dirt, impurities of the mind. This is how the mind looks like before, after it's lush green. So dharma-megha-samādhi clears the sky, the mind recovers its natural state of sattva. What dharma-megha-samādhi does is it just washes away the impurities. So in that final state, that is the step towards liberation. Since sattva is by nature expansive and illuminating, the mind's knowledge becomes infinite because of the sattva guna prevailing in the mind. The analogy given is that of a firefly against a vast night sky. Vast night sky with all the stars is like our consciousness. Firefly is analogous to the objects of the universe of Prakriti. It's insignificant compared to the huge night sky with so many stars. So the universe, now we're going to see, the universe is nothing but the three gunas. We saw Prakriti, the fabric, we saw the red, blue, and the white colors, the fabric of Prakriti. So that is nothing but the three gunas: sattva, rajas, tamas. So the universe is nothing but a jigsaw puzzle of sattva, rajas, and tamas. And finally, we'll see how the gunas themselves will recede. Okay, so tata kritatanam parinamakrama samaptir gunanam tata krita arthanam. Then, tata means then. So every sloka has a tata, then. What happens is last few series of events. Krita arthanam, having done or fulfilled their purpose. Krita, purpose, completed, having done. Krita, it's action, having done. Arthanam, the purpose or objective, having done. Parinamakrama samaptir gunanam. Parinamakrama means the transforming sequence of the gunas, samaptihi. So it has ended. Samaptihi means ended. What has ended? The transforming sequence of the gunas has ended. Then the gunas end their sequence of transformation, having fulfilled their purpose. And what is the purpose of the gunas? Bhoga and apavarga. Bhoga means providing experience to the entity called this jiva. Apavarga means liberation. So we'll see that with the example. Okay, how it comes in the next one. So if the Purusha is like a crystal here. When you bring a red flower next to it, this entity, Purusha plus the red flower, will look red. But the Purusha is colorless. It's just standing because the Prakriti came close. It's giving attributes to the Purusha, which the Purusha has none of. So you are like that. You, the Purusha, are getting the attributes of the body, the mind, smart, intelligent, beautiful, all that. It is it's the Prakriti imposing its attributes on the Purusha. And it's all from this mix of these gunas. It's Prakriti. One day it's red, another day it's blue. It's constantly changing. Okay. Okay. So the gunas end their sequence of transformation having fulfilled their purpose. So gunas have finished their job. Vyasa states that for the liberated yogi, both these purposes, bhoga, apavarga, we saw that the purpose of Prakriti is to provide bhoga and apavarga to this entity called a jiva, the mix between Purusha and Prakriti. So I'll show the example. So the example is like, I thought I had this, the light of the, it's there. I'm not able to find it, but visualize a crystal with a red flower behind it. So the crystal is unaffected because the red flower comes behind. The crystal looks red, and the gunas change, and it causes all this. So now this entity in this projection, it itself has understood that it is not the Prakriti. So the gunas will stop mutating at that point. So in the mind, this entity called the jiva has understood that it is actually just the Purusha. It's just the play of the gunas which makes it look something other, gives it color, all forms, shapes. Once that is known, the gunas will stop mutating. It's like a magic trick. Once you find out, it doesn't have that the intense appeal anymore. So the whole thing will dissolve. That's what Patanjali, or the author, says. So the gunas is the machinery. The fuel for the machinery is ignorance, avidya. And um, the karma is the unseen hand that moves the machinery in a certain way. So the whole thing gets started. It's just small moves here and there. Click that button, click this button. That comes from karma. So gunas are the machinery. It keeps how it does, everything keeps changing. This little bit of push here and there comes from the karma. It's called adrishta. Drishta, adrishta, janma, vedaniyaha. We saw that in the second chapter. Seen and unseen experiences, it comes from karma, driven by adrishta. It's not random. Okay, gunas are the machinery of nature. Avidya is the fuel that fuels this entire machinery. So far, everything clear? Okay. And now we'll see the invisible sequence behind this change. Shana pratiyogi parinama paranta nigrahya kramaha. The sequence referred to in the previous sutra consists of an uninterrupted succession of moments, and it's grasped at the end. It's only when the whole thing plays out, one realizes, this is what had happened along the way. So, krama, kshana pratiyogi, parinama, aparanta, nirgrahya, kramaha. Kramaha means it is a sequence. It is the succession corresponding to each moment, which is apprehended at the completion of a transformation. It means the presence of a gradual sequence becomes evident from the completed change. Vyasa explains it using the example of a new cloth becoming old. We cannot normally observe the infinitesimal change in every moment, occurring in every moment, but when it becomes so old and becomes clearly manifest, we know an uninterrupted succession of minute transformations must have occurred. Why is this? It seems very bland at the outset. Why is this? Of course, we know any change is small, minute things adding along, but we'll see with an example the implication. So this is this is not Vedantic language. This is very Sankhya language. Sankhya and Yoga are sister philosophies. So there's no God and all that. It's all this. It looks like physics. It's like small moments causing this. And at the end, your entire life, you will get an idea. So this is what had happened. So it'll be like a 2020 aha moment. The sequence, so kshana is a moment, pratiyogi, uninterrupted succession. Prati means toward, yogi means like joining. Pratiyogi means uninterrupted succession. That is, prati also here it's used in the word of succession. Uninterrupted, yogi means always connected. Yoga means connect. Yoga, the word yoga literally means yoke, to join. So if you see English and Sanskrit, they had same roots, Indo-European languages. So a lot of the words you will see, they are very similar. Pratiyogi is uninterrupted succession. Parinama is change or transformation. So at the end, aparanta nigrahya kramaha. Aparanta at the ultimate end. Anta is end. Aparanta is ultimate end. Nirgrahya, one can grasp this sequence of uninterrupted successions at the end. Okay. So the culmination, the yogi has reached Kaivalya. The process of gunas stops mutating. The sequence ends for that liberated jiva. It does not mean Prakriti or the Gunas universally cease functioning for all beings. Once you understood a magic trick, it's no longer appealing to you. Before that, it was just magical. It mesmerizes. There's a churn happening. Once you know, you lose interest. That's how the whole thing is. So we will see that with an example of from the Mahabharata, the fall of the Kuru dynasty. Nobody realized that fall. Only at the end, after the war, when there was a carnage, like all the people were lying dead, that is when people knew about all these small moments which had caused this costly war. Okay, so after the 18-day war, the field of Kurukshetra was covered with bodies of kings, warriors, all relatives, sons, brothers, teachers. Duryodhana lay mortally wounded. Bhishma was on his bed of arrows. Drona, Karna, Abhimanyu, and the sons of Draupadi were all dead. This is after the battle with Bhima, Duryodhana's battle. Dhritarashtra and Gandhari had lost all their sons. Looking at the final scene, someone might say the Kuru dynasty was destroyed in the battle of Kurukshetra. No. The Mahabharata shows that its destruction did not begin on the first day of the battle. It unfolded through a succession of smaller transformations. When Dhritarashtra first excused Duryodhana's jealousy, the kingdom changed slightly. When Bhima was poisoned, so Bhima was poisoned and thrown into the water to drown. At that time, it became a little worse. Another change occurred when the Pandavas were sent to the house of wax to set fire. The Kauravas tricked the Pandavas into staying in a beautiful palace, but the palace was made of wax. It can catch fire. Nobody knew that. So, and they set fire, but somehow the Pandavas were able to escape. Then they knew the relationship between the two families was permanently estranged. Draupadi finally, when the Draupadi was humiliated in the assembly, and so Draupadi was humiliated in the assembly, and even the elders remained silent. All the elders you see sitting and remaining silent. So then something fundamental in the Kuru court died. When the second dies was permitted, reconciliation became more difficult. When Pandavas completed the exile, but Duryodhana refused to give them even 5 villages. Krishna went as a emissary. He's just to negotiate. Duryodhana said no. Finally, even the Krishna requested 5 villages. That was also rejected. So no single event by itself appeared to be the destruction of the Kuru dynasty. Each stage, life in Hastinapura continued as normal. The court assembled, kings ruled, armies trained, ceremonies were performed. Outwardly, the kingdom still existed. Yet with every decision, it was becoming a different kingdom. At Kurukshetra, the transformation reached its aparanta, the final limit, its concluding limit. Only then the whole succession, everybody saw, all this had cost. So the war was therefore not an isolated event. It was a visible completion of a process that had begun taking place through innumerable earlier moments. So the war was like that. Okay. Now comes the final sutra, very beautiful sutra on what happens at liberation. Purushartha shunyanam gunanam pratiprasava kaivalyam swarupa pratishtava chiti shaktiriti. Their purpose to the Purusha having ended, the gunas recede into Prakriti and there is liberation. Or in other words, the power of consciousness resides in its own true nature. Purusha Artha Shunya Nam means after its purpose to the Purusha having ended. Shunya means zeroed out. Artha means purpose. Purusha Artha Shunyam, after its, whose purpose? It refers to Prakriti or the Gunas. Gunas are nothing but the constituent of Prakriti. So when you say Prakriti, it's the three Gunas. After that purpose to the Purusha having ended, the Gunas, Gunanam Pratiprasavaha. So the Gunas recede. So Prasavam means potency or pregnancy. They just, it's like rivers, they reverse pregnancy, they recede into Prakriti. Kaivalyam, then liberation, there is liberation. And what happens? The second part answers Yoga Sutra, Sutra 3. Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam, or in other words, the power of consciousness resides in its own true nature. When the red flower disappears away behind the crystal, it remains in its own true nature. Swarupa pratishtha. Pratishtha means established or settled in its swarupa, means own true nature. So chiti shaktihi iti. Chiti shaktihi means the power of consciousness resides in its own true nature. Then all the gunas, that's when they say the mind itself is destroyed. It's not like the person goes mad, the person still lives till their prarabdha karma is exhausted at death, but the mind stops playing. You don't, identification with it is gone. That is the state of Kaivalyam. It's called Jivan Muktihi. One becomes a Jivan. Mind dissolves into the unmanifested Prakriti and the play is over. What happens to the mind? The gunas, which make up the buddhi, having no further purpose to fulfill, they undergo involution. They resolve into the unmanifested Prakriti. So before Kaivalya, a pure crystal had the flower. After Kaivalya, you remove the red flower. Okay. And now the crystal is now seen as colorless. The crystal did not move. The flower disappeared. It just merged back into Prakriti. And the crystal is not merging with other crystal. It just stays there. That is the state of being in its own true nature. So with that, we end the fourth chapter. So here is the thing. So nothing happens. What happens to the Purusha after Kaivalyam? Nothing, absolutely nothing happens to the Purusha. So the flower was there, makes the crystal look red. Then when it disappears, the crystal, it's in its own true nature, colorless. Okay. So the term Swarupa Pratishtha, residing in its own true nature, it's a little important term. Before liberation, the Purusha appeared to be established in the mind's nature. If the mind was sad, it seemed as though you were sad. The Purusha became sad. Other times, the seer appears to take the form of the mental modifications. Upon Kaivalya, because the reflecting medium itself has dissolved, the Purusha is no longer looking at the reflection. It is resting in itself. Crucial point is, Purusha does not change or go anywhere. It doesn't move to heaven, doesn't gain new knowledge. It simply loses the illusion of association. Okay? The event of Kaivalya is removing the red flower. After Kaivalya, it's the same, but it is the illusion of who you are is now gone. Okay. So with this, we end the fourth chapter and the final chapter of the Yoga Sutras, titled Kaivalya Pādaḥ. Okay, let me stop the recording.